Now let's return to that parliamentary committee concluding that Boris Johnson repeatedly, recklessly, deliberately misled the Commons over what he knew about parties at Downing Street. Let's talk to Conservative MP for Lichfield, Sir Michael Fabricant. Sir Michael, good to see you as always. There's no coming back from this, is there?
In the case, for any other MP, I would say no. But in the case of Boris, I don't think you can predict anything. And to say that Boris is gone, finished, never to be seen again, I think is optimistic in the case of those who don't like him and would be very pessimistic for those who love him.
But he has, I mean, if you look at the detail of the report that I've not read the whole thing, but what we've seen so far, I mean, it's absolutely damning, not only misleading Parliament, but then also, intimidating, impugning the committee. I mean, this is pretty hardcore stuff.
I'm afraid I have to smile when it comes to impugning the committee. Look, let's be clear. The committee is not a cardinal, the College of Cardinals who decide who the Pope is going to be. They're MPs like me and anyone else. What I would say about the committee is they deserve respect, but in order to get respect, they actually have to behave themselves in a respectful way. Now, I was there when Boris Johnson gave his evidence, and that committee was sitting in what they say is a quasi-judicial role, like a jury in a court. But unlike a jury in a court, some of the members of that committee were pulling faces, they turning their backs on Boris. I mean, it was absolutely extraordinary behaviour. And if it were a court, the judge would have called it to order. But it wasn't called to order. And, you know, when it comes to that committee, respect has to be earned. And with regard to some of the members of that committee, I'm not so sure that they've earned that respect. And of course, we learned yesterday that at least one of the members of the committee was also breaking Partygate rules. Now, can I just say one thing about the committee report? While it makes it clear that he misled Parliament, what isn't so clear is whether he did so intentionally. Because the question was a question of law. Did he actually believe he was breaking the rules? I'm not so sure he did, because in a work environment, meetings were allowed. And, it's a large place, number 10 Downing Street, with over 100 rooms. So anything could have been happening there, as indeed happened in other departments.
Yeah, but hold on, Sir Michael. Whereas you say it wasn't made clear whether he did it deliberately, to quote the report, we came to the view that some of Mr Johnson's denials and explanations were so disingenuous they were, by their very nature, deliberate attempts to mislead the committee and the House. Well, that's pretty clear.
It's pretty clear that that's their view, certainly. Whether it's so clear that, in fact, a judge would take that view is another matter altogether. As I say, when he gave evidence to the committee, people were sort of behaving in an extraordinary way, some of the members of the committee. Others, I might say, behaved with great dignity and carefully listened. But I think what a lot of people would say is that maybe there's a little bit of politics in all this. And it was certainly a pretty vindictive conclusion that they came to ban him for 90 days, had he not decided to jump before he was pushed. And
yes,
frankly,
but
if he'd read... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, within that, and I know it's difficult for those of us not within Parliament to understand, but you've been there a long time. You know the rules and regulations and what he's seen. The idea that he leaked elements of the report, which he did on Friday in his response, I mean, that is a huge contempt of Parliament. Now, that in terms of how Westminster works, that's hugely important, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if he was a member of Parliament at that stage. I think he'd already resigned. So I guess he felt, well, look, I've got the copy, I can leak it. I'm not a member of Parliament anymore. I think that actually is a small detail. I mean, the real detail is what the actual committee was addressing, namely the perceived contempt of Parliament by misleading Parliament. However, what is generally the remit of a Privileges Committee is whether someone deliberately set out to mislead Parliament. And I believe that he actually did believe that the advice he'd been getting from the civil servants was that everything that was done at number 10 Downing Street was legal. And one of the reasons why I believe that is many, many, many more fixed penalty notices, over 100, went to the civil servants at number 10 Downing Street at the time, including the ones who were giving the legal advice that actually, you know what? Because it was a work environment and a closed environment, it was legal. Now, we know that it turns out that that advice was wrong. But when he then went to Parliament and said that he was doing everything within the rules, I believe he clearly thought that that was correct. And he wasn't deliberately misleading Parliament at the time.
If we were talking about someone we didn't know, a lot of people would say you make a very... Even people who aren't pro-Boris Johnson would say, well, you make an interesting argument, Sir Michael Fabricant. However, this is a man who we know has got a relaxed relationship with the truth. That's problematic, isn't it?
I love that. By the way, can I give a blanket instruction to GB News to just... You can say Michael Fabricant or Michael. You don't have to keep saying sir, but I appreciate it. Now, as far as Boris is concerned, what I would say is that he's a big ideas man. He's not a details man. And, you know, in prime ministers are not meant to be managing directors of an organisation. They're meant to be the sort of chairman of the organisation with people advising him. So, yes, I think that would be my answer to the point that you make, Stephen.
Michael Fabricant, good to see. Can I just say, Michael Fabricant, that if I was Sir Stephen Dixon, I would insist everyone called me Sir Stephen 24/7, even my husband. I just absolutely would. There you go. But really good to see.
Well, can I just tell you that I was asked, actually, by the people who operate the TV screens at the House of Commons whether they want my name changed to Sir Michael Fabricant on the screen. And I thought to myself, you know what, I don't call myself Mr. Michael Fabricant because it's actually too long for the ruddy screen. So I said, just keep it as it is, Michael Fabricant. People
you see that's more humble than I could be, let me tell you. Really good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.